Welcome to this edition of Spotlight. I'm John Buckley. With us today we have a special guest, Bob Lund. He's the voice of sports for WKBK AM and WXOD FM radio here in town. We'd like to welcome you, Bob, to the show.
My pleasure, John.
And I'd like to ask you just a few questions about what you've done over the past few years. How did you get started in the business of radio sports?
Well, it's kind of a different type of start I had. After I got done competitive sports, and I used to go to like a lot of the local high school games around here, a friend of mine, Ken Patterson, was doing the games for WKNE, Keene High School basketball, and one night he was sitting up alone in the back of the bleachers at Keene High, and he was doing the game alone, and I said, geez, you know, I'll keep a scorebook for you. So that night I kept the scorebook, and then he told me if I wanted to show up the next time they had a game that I was welcome to, and so I did. And the next time I showed up there was a microphone, and I guess we went from there.
Now, how many years have you been doing this?
I'm in my 21st year right now. That event happened about January 15th or so in 1974, so I'm into the 21st year now.
Yeah, great. What is it about local sports in this area that attracts you to doing sports here in Keene?
I think one of the things is where we're located geographically, we're sort of blocked off from the rest of the state, and a lot of things were blocked off from the rest of New England, and sometimes it seems like the world. And there's people that take pride in what happens here, their local teams, and that's one of the things radio has lasted, doing games and so forth. This area takes a big pride in the baseball that's produced here, and we've done a lot of that. Plus, when young people are done playing baseball, softball is the next thing, and we have some major adult leagues around here. One time there was over 100 teams. I guess it's probably in the 70-team level now for adult softball. So things like that will keep you going. You know, one time all I did all summer long was just go from one softball game to another to get the scores on the air and everything. So that's something unique to this area, I think.
What are some other sports that you cover besides baseball and softball?
Well, basically football. Right now, doing Keene High football, they had an excellent year this year. They were 8-0 during the regular season, and currently we're doing Keene High basketball. They're having a tournament-level season. We'll be doing Keene High hockey very shortly. I haven't done hockey myself for about 8 years, so it's going to be kind of interesting. Keene High School is #1 ranked currently in the state in hockey, only one loss, and we're going to pick up their games in the tournament. And that'll be interesting because, you know, I like hockey, but I haven't had a chance to call it every year like I have with basketball and football recently.
How are the sports in this area? I mean, over the years, how have they changed locally?
I think the teams probably are as competitive as they've ever been compared to the state. I think it's probably about the same level they've always been. I think you look in the summertime in baseball, the Legion teams and the summer teams are as good as most teams in New England. In fact, some of our youth teams last year, the Bambino 12-year-olds went to the Nationals, the World Series. The 14-year-olds won the New Englands, and they beat a team from Staten Island. That's kind of funny because Staten Island's not really in New England, but it was an invitational, and so we've been very competitive, I think.
That's great. Who is someone in radio over the years who you respect the most? I think if you talk about right now, I'd have to say Gil Santos. I think in Boston, radio voice of the Patriots. I really admire the way he calls a football game. I like the way he puts together a regular radio show during the week, and I think I'd really admire that. Of course, you could go to Johnny Most, the legendary Celtics announcer. I think maybe a lot of the younger people might not have heard him at his best. I heard him when in the peak of the Celtics dynasty in the 60s, and you know, he was pretty good back then. A little bit of a homer, though, but that added to the flavor of his broadcast, I think. Now, in the pre-interview, you mentioned you had a friend of yours from Keene who actually went and is doing sports on a network.
tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah, Dave O'Brien, who was originally from Marlborough, I worked with him about probably maybe 10 years ago, and he's now one of the radio voices of the Florida Marlins, Major League Baseball. And so he took it to another level plus, I guess you would say. And you know, I really feel proud to know that I've worked with somebody that that has gone that far.
That's great. Finally, in wrapping this up, is there a dream you've always wanted to fulfill when you started? Is there a goal that you wanted to reach, or how did you get?
Well, that's a tough question, because originally I got into this, I had always played competitive sports, and when I stopped playing competitively, I wanted to coach, and I did get a degree from Keene State that I could teach, but I got involved in the family business and I was not teaching. You had to be a teacher to be a coach. It's not so now. And so what happened was the next best thing to coaching was writing and announcing. I wrote a sports column for the what is now the Monadnock Shopper News for 10 years, and also did broadcasting, and that sort of satisfied the coaching urge. And at some point I had to make a decision and maybe drop my coaching dream and went along to do the broadcasting and newspaper work, and then the newspaper work fell by the wayside, and I don't know, I've sort of tried to be the best that I could be at what I was doing currently, and never really had any aspirations beyond, say, Keene or anything. I mean, it'd be great, don't get me wrong, if some opportunity came along, but I just figured if I could be the best at what I was trying to do, then I was doing my job.
Okay. Well, thank you, Bob, for joining us today, and thank you for joining us today as well. And we'll see you on the next edition of Spotlight. Back to you.